I'm Kelly from Kelly's Choice Nutritional Company, here to educate you on the what, when, and how of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are essential for health. They are the body's #1 energy fuel. Did you know your brain only works on glucose, which is a carbohydrate? Now, carbohydrates come in two different forms. There's complex and there's simple. They're very different and they work differently in the body. Complex carbohydrate, if you can picture a seed or a nut, has 3 different parts: a bran, a germ, and an endosperm. When you have complex carbohydrates, it has all 3. And the reason that this is important is because it has fiber. That fiber is going to help to maintain blood sugar levels, which means they're not going to fly up and shoot down. In the way of sports nutrition, this is extremely important. Think about if you had no fiber and had simple carbohydrates or pure sugar, you would come up and maybe halfway through the game, you would crash down. What would happen? You'd be out of the game. Carbohydrates come from various sources. They can come from fruit, which is fructose. They can come from milk and dairy products, which contains lactose, or they can come from beans, cereals, rice, grains, which has glucose. Yes, they all end in ose. Because there's so many different types of carbohydrates, they don't all work equally in the body. Some of them are complex carbohydrates, which means that they are more dense. Other ones are simple carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates are used before the game and after the game because they have fiber. Simple carbohydrates should be used right after the game or the practice to refuel the cells. 15 to 20 minutes after your game or practice is the most critical and crucial time to get in simple carbohydrates. An example of a simple carbohydrate could be as simple as chocolate milk. The sugar from the chocolate plus the milk and the protein is the perfect combination to refuel the cells. Any activity that is longer than 90 minutes would require to have some simple carbohydrates added to your diet plan. Having carbohydrates during the game may lead to some digestive issues that you may not want to have. I want you to picture a sports car. Carbohydrates are the fuel for that sports car. The gas is really expensive and will run out, the same as carbohydrates in your body. You have to keep replacing them to keep that engine going. The liver and the muscle stores carbohydrate, but it only has a limited amount. Did you know when you train properly with the proper amount of carbohydrates, you can increase that storage by 5-fold? Low-carb diets are not for athletes. You need to make sure that you're eating carbohydrates at every single mealtime. That means adding in beans, fruit, some vegetables like potatoes. Every single mealtime and every single snack should incorporate some type of carbohydrates to fuel your stores. You may have heard of carbo loading. That was a thing of the past. We have figured out as sports dietitians that that is not the best way to fuel your body. The best way to fuel your body is to get a portion of all the foods at every single mealtime. The percentage of carbohydrates you should be getting in your diet is about 50%. Now remember, we talked about all the different types of carbohydrates, and there's some foods that fit into multiple categories, and that's why you're going to think about it more on half your plate. So beans, for instance, are a vegetable, but they're also a carbohydrate source. Same with your dairy. So if you have a glass of milk with your pasta, you're having more than half your plate. So think about at meal times, is half of my plate carbohydrates? So I'm going to show you a great demonstration that really explains the difference between whole grain and enriched white flour. So we have 2 pieces of bread here. We have enriched white flour and we have whole grain bread. When you're looking for whole grain, make sure it says the word whole or 100%. Don't get tricked and just buy enriched white flour with brown food coloring. So the example I'm going to show you today is between the enriched white and the whole grain. We're going to use orange juice as stomach acid to show you how whole grains versus simple break down in the system. Our white bread has only 1 out of the 3 components to make a whole grain. That is the endosperm, pretty much pure sugar. Versus our whole grain, which has 3 parts, our bran, our germ, and our endosperm. And why that is so important is because it has fiber. Now, if you think of your shirt, the fibers in your shirt, it keeps it together. So that's what fibers are, and that's how they work actually in the body as well. So when we add orange juice that simulates stomach acid, it's going to show how these 2 things are not created equal. So the stomach acid is going to eat away that white bread very quickly and very rapidly versus the whole grain bread that's going to stay solid and stay with you for a longer period of time. This is a direct impact on your blood sugar levels. The white bread is going to send your blood sugar levels skyrocketing. It's going to release insulin, which is then going to drive blood sugars down. Now, during the game, this is very important. Think about rising up and halfway through crashing down. That's not what you want. The whole grain bread, it's going to take a long time to digest, making sure with that fiber that we keep those blood sugar levels stable. That's what you want during the game.